Hello, my name is Deborah Curran, and I'm a professor at the University of Victoria in Canada, and I'm honored to join you for the inaugural Paro Forum. It has been my honor to work with Professor Sharing Dolkar over the last couple of years on a range of environmental law projects and scholarship. And I know that Bhutan, in taking the leadership in creating a climate law center, will continue in that way in teaching us all in the rest of the world what really meaningful action at a state level and a community level on climate change really is. What I'd like to do today is talk a little bit about my experience over the last 20 years or so working with the Environmental Law Clinic at the University of Victoria. So for the next 12 minutes or so, I'd like to just take you through what our model is and how it is we work at the center, in particular on climate change issues. So I'd like to just share my screen with you, if you'll bear with me. And you'll be able to see some of the reports and submissions and projects that we've been able to do. So I'll just take you through the Environmental Law Center, the purpose and why it was formed, and provide you with an overview of our clinic model. And so students are able to take the clinic as a course every year. Provide you with a summary of the services that we provide within the law school. And then finally, the most fun and what I hope to leave most of the time for is to take you through some of the projects that we've done over the last 5 years or so that relate to climate change. And so I really should say that as a professor in the Faculty of Law, and I'm also appointed in the School of Environmental Studies, this job, or this part of my job, really is the highlight of my career, working with students on pro bono legal services to help community organizations and Indigenous communities with their environmental and climate change issues. Just to give you a little bit of context, because Bhutan is quite different than Canada. As you know, Canada is a giant country, and the jurisdiction within which I work is primarily British Columbia, which is a province on the very west coast. So you can see it in the left-hand map that's outlined in red. And the island that's just off the coast of British Columbia that you see the arrow pointing to is about the size of Bhutan. It's a little bit smaller. So that's Vancouver Island, and in the right-hand map, that's British Columbia, and then you can see Vancouver Island a little bit in a little bit more detail. And so it's only about 3,000 square kilometers less than the size of Bhutan. So you really get a sense of scale when I'm talking about the kind of projects that we're working on and the issues that we're working on. So the purpose of the Environmental Law Center is to provide pro bono legal services to community organizations and Indigenous communities across BC, and also to train the next generation of public interest environmental lawyers in Canada. And so to do that, we have a specific model that over the last 25 years really has worked. So we're the oldest environmental law clinic embedded in a faculty of law in Canada, so about 27 years old. And there aren't actually that many in Canada. There's only about 4 environmental law clinics. Students founded it way back in the 1990s because they wanted to get credit, course credit, for doing environmental projects for community organizations. We have a nonprofit organization structure, so we're actually a registered society, and we're governed by a board of directors, and half of those board members are students as well. All of our funding comes from outside of the university, so primarily philanthropic foundations, as well as the Law Foundation of British Columbia, and we have fairly stable funding because of our role in supporting all wide range and diversity of community organizations. And really the Environmental Law Clinic course that the students take each term is really the heart and of what we do, and also where we generate most of our activity. So we have about 36 students a year come through the clinic, about 12 each term, and we teach 3 terms per year. I'm the executive director, but I'm also a full-time professor. So the Environmental Law Clinic is either I'm allowed to teach in it once a year, or it's my administrative load, and I take care of all the fundraising. We have 2 additional lawyers who teach in the clinic regularly and provide supervision for the students, and then 2 support staff who make us look good and keep our organization running administratively. And with that complement of individuals, we provide over 6,000 hours of pro bono legal services each year to British Columbia communities and in Canada overall. What our model is for actually generating the projects is either we as environmental law practitioners know of issues that need to be addressed, or more often clients come to us because of our reputation. So they come to us and apply through our application process. We select then cases for students to work on each term. So we go through many different meetings of the lawyers to decide which cases would make not only the most important work to be done, but also a good term of projects for the students. And then the board of directors approves that suite of projects. And then the students take on individual projects or client files to carry out throughout the term. The vast majority of the work is actually done by students with our direction. So they'll come up with a project product with our close supervision. So I meet with my students at least once a week. And then when they hand in their final project, I revise it and review it and then send it out to the client. And then once the student has finished in the clinic, it's our responsibility as the lawyers to help the client make the results happen ultimately at the end of the day. And so this graphic just gives you some example of the hours of service from students and then the organization as a whole. And the range of clients that we serve, so primarily community organizations, environmental organizations, and Indigenous organizations as well. And we work in all areas of the province. So most of the population in British Columbia is concentrated in the southern part, but we try and make sure that we provide service to communities across BC. About 5 years ago, we did an evaluation of the clinic, and it was a very large evaluation, but I'll just pull out this one statistic where about 80% of the respondents to the survey that we sent out were practicing lawyers, and of those, 82% said that their work in the clinic actually contributed to their development of their lawyering skills. So we know that the kind of training that we provide is valuable to students. Going then to the kinds of services that we provide, we don't do counsel of record work, so we aren't the sole or the litigators on a file by ourselves, but we do provide assistance to lawyers who are litigating important projects. But you can see the wide range of work that we do, everything from legal opinions and law reform reports for clients to submissions to governments and review and legislative bodies, complaints to governing or statutory bodies. We do a lot of legal research and writing, either for lawyers or for community organizations on a pro bono basis. We have done amicus curiae briefs to courts in other countries. And then we also draft laws and policies for Indigenous communities and organizations based on their own legal orders. And then also do legal education and discussion papers more broadly for the public. So now for the fun stuff in my last 3 minutes, I'd like to just take you through some areas of projects that we've worked on that specifically deal with climate-related law and policy. So the first area is opposing infrastructure using fossil fuels. And so there are a lot of projects in Canada as a primary fossil fuel and mining country in the world. There's lots of projects to continue to develop those natural resources. And so we provide assistance to community organizations and make submissions opposing that kind of infrastructure. So this is just an example where a community in the central part of the province had a proposal for 3 separate facilities for creating plastics and converting natural gas to a variety of petrochemical products. And so we made 3 separate submissions to the local government and various government agencies trying to stop that project. And ultimately, it was significantly decreased in size, and I think it's not going forward at this point in time. We also have been doing some work on greenwashing or misleading advertising claims, and we specifically made a complaint to the Competition Bureau that Keurig Canada, which has those small coffee pods, the plastic coffee pods, was saying that they were entirely recyclable. We in fact proved that that wasn't true, and the Competition Bureau made an order that Keurig had to pay a $3 million penalty, as well as correct the advertising in public newspapers and other fora. We do a lot of law reform, advocating for a circular economy approach, primarily around plastics. So what to do around plastics docks, plastic fishing gear, single-use plastics. And I know that Bhutan has had a ban on single-use plastics for many years. And we continue to work on that as Canada, increasingly the different levels of government are taking up that call to change the way that we use plastics and fossil fuel products. We do a lot of evaluation of law and policy that supports fossil fuel production and use. So this report specifically, for example, was looking at the way that the Canadian government, through a variety of mechanisms, subsidizes in law and policy fossil fuel industries and then enables greenhouse gas emissions through those subsidies. We also identify more future-looking law reform and laws for sustainable infrastructure systems that will decrease greenhouse gas emissions and help to address climate change. So specifically in the areas of water, transportation, and energy. So we've looked at banning water bottling as a use under our water licensing system in British Columbia, to looking at ways that people can reduce their commute trips to and from work, and then also how local governments can use their authority to meet 100% renewable energy target goal. We also do a lot of adaptation work, so identifying laws that can help existing infrastructure adapt to increasing water flows in particular. So this is a review of flood management and fish habitat, and then also do comprehensive law reform projects. So in particular related to mining, we put together with 20 other organizations a platform for finding or amending law reform in British Columbia, especially in regards to how it has an impact in Indigenous communities and also on climate. And finally, we do work with Indigenous communities standing up and upholding their Indigenous legal orders or customary law in the face of state legal orders that are having an effect on them in terms of climate. And so that's often creating laws and regulations and policies from their perspective that then tells people what they need to do when they come into their territory. So Kadin Chela, thank you so much for allowing me to join you and to share my perspective of the Environmental Law Clinic here at the University of Victoria. And I look forward to participating in the question and answer period that's about to happen. Thank you.
Thank you,